do you describe day one in a place you've never been before?
My name's Barry Jones, B-A-R-R-Y.
You never expected to be. July 1995. This was Barry Jones's introduction to his new home.
One old boy came up there and gave me a pouch of tobacco. You know, he says, hey, welcome to death row, for what that's worth. I was walking around in the fog. I couldn't believe it. You know, I'm going to death row for something I didn't do. That doesn't happen.
Barry Jones was a simple man, a mechanic and iron worker, married with 3 kids. But everything changed for the worse when he became addicted to drugs in his 30s.
We broke up, we separated, and things went downhill from there.
That's when he met Angela Gray, a girl he started seeing who had a 4-year-old daughter named Rachel.
What happened that day, that night in 1994 when Rachel died? What happened inside the home?
Apparently, Rachel had been injured several times that I didn't even know about. But that day, I let her and a couple of neighbor kids play in my van, and I seen her come falling out of the van, and she landed on her head. Then later that night, somebody comes over and says, oh, she looks really sick.
They debated going to the hospital.
If she ain't better by the morning, we'll take her.
Barry, Angela, and Rachel all crawled into bed for the night.
But Rachel, she said, no, Mom, says, I want to sleep in the middle. Says, I want to be by Barry too. And I thought that was real touching. And then she says, we go to bed, and then she says, I love you, Barry. And I said, I love you too. And that was the last thing she ever said to me.
The next morning, Rachel was dead.
Next thing I know, the police waking me up and taking me to the Pima County Sheriff's Department and interrogating me for 5 or 6 hours. And then they took me to jail, and 14 months later, I went to death row.
Angela Gray was convicted of child abuse and failure to get medical help and served just over 8 years in prison. But prosecutors claimed Barry beat Rachel, sexually assaulted her, and killed her.
Did you hurt Rachel in any way?
No way at all. I find it inconceivable that anybody could do something like that to a 4-year-old child.
The jury didn't buy it, even though at the time, all evidence was circumstantial. There was no direct evidence Barry caused the injuries to Rachel's body, but Barry had a history that was easy to blame.
You know, he's on drugs, he's got warrants out for his arrest. I was convicted of a crime not because I committed a crime, but I was convicted of a lifestyle.
So began his decades-long stay on death row. It would take a new legal team years later to relook at the case and think, something is wrong here. His new team said evidence from the autopsy showed Rachel's injuries were sustained at least a week before she died, and said the medical examiner changed his testimony in each trial, pointing to inconsistencies. All along, Barry maintained he never killed Rachel, but hope can feel dismal when you're living on death row.
Everybody told you when you first get there, it says, you know what, it says if you didn't beat them in court, chances are you're not going to beat them on appeal.
But it wasn't impossible. Things began to change in 2018 when a federal district court judge ruled Barry's convictions should be overturned. The Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit agreed. But the U.S. Supreme Court said federal courts didn't have the power to review the case and sent it to the state while keeping Barry in prison.
You know, it's 100 times harder to get somebody out of prison than it is to win at court.
Eventually, the Arizona Attorney General's office and Pima County Attorney's office collaborated and agreed. Barry did not kill Rachel Gray, but offered a plea deal for second-degree murder, solely based on the fact Barry should have sought medical care for Rachel when he noticed she was sick. Even Rachel's sister wrote a letter to the judge asking him to free Barry, sure of the fact he did not kill her sister.
She wrote that letter to the judge, and every time I think about that, I get a little misty. But the fact is that I didn't seek medical care for Rachel. If I had been in my right mind and not high and stuff like that, then I surely would have.
June 15th, 2023, 29 years after he walked into prison, Barry Jones walked out of death row, saying goodbye to some of the most notorious killers in Arizona history, people he became close with because that's all he knew, like the Baseline Killer.
We was talking about serial killers. Mark Godot, one of my best friends. One of my best friends. I mean, he gave me a great big hug before I left death row, you know.
Do you hold resentment for the U.S. justice system?
No, it's not resentment, it's disappointment. I got a little bit of justice because they released me, but Rachel will never get justice because they don't know who killed her, and they ain't never gonna know because they're not gonna open up a 30-year cold case.
It's as if he's been born again, learning how to live in a world he doesn't know or recognize.
And everything is so different. I mean, you go to the grocery store now and you can check yourself out. You don't even got to go to a cashier. It's crazy, the new cars and everything. It's just, it's bewildering, you know. But
now in his mid-60s, he has no time to waste. Perhaps never quite moving on, but learning for the first time how to move forward.
How do you even emotionally come out of what you've been through?
I don't know that you ever do. I'm probably going to carry that around with me for the rest of my life. And that's what's going to make me a better man, and an asset to the community.
That's
Quite
just
the
so
story.
Unfathomable, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And so he is now planning to work for his son's construction company. He just bought a mobile home. He's working on getting a driver's license, truly reacclimating to life now in 2023 because he went into death row in 1995.
Yeah, that's 29 years of life.
29 years.
Why did they go with second-degree murder?
So he would serve 29 years, and the maximum sentence for a second-degree murder charge is 25 years. That best matched the time he had already spent with community service, everything else he would have to do on the back end. But that's likely to take liability off the state because you heard there the mom only faced and served about 8 years. So it doesn't seem quite right. But he said to me, you know what, do I keep fighting this for 10 more years with the hope that I get out and have it overturned? Or do I spend time with the kids I've already lost so much time with and take the plea deal to be out free at 65 years old?
So it's essentially about convenience rather than trying to actually pin him down to a crime he committed, which might have been more akin to like neglect or something like that.
Yes, and honestly, in their press release, the Attorney General's press release, it said second-degree murder for failure to get her medical care, medical aid when he first noticed she was sick. And he said, I should have. I should have, and I know that I messed up, and he's emotional about it. But he did not kill her. That's what the Attorney General's office found. That's what the Pima County Attorney's office found. And he is so sure of that and wants justice for Rachel too.
There's just so much information to process and so many emotions to manage for him.
Man, it's
now that he's starting over.
Right, you're really starting fresh because this isn't the life that he knew back in the 90s. And so you wish him well, you wish the family well. You know, the sister obviously vouching for him, saying, hey, he did not kill my sister, you should let him out. I think that really affected the judge. But ultimately, now it's good to see somebody who shouldn't have been on death row who's finally free. Yeah.
Fascinating story. Brianna,
Thanks so much,
you.
guys.
All right.